go ahead and get out your textbooks to chapter 21 and look at page 157. Page 157. What we'll do is we'll just review real quickly what we're doing with the formation of the cal passive participle. We're using pakad as our paradigm verb, so those are the three root letters. And let's just remind ourselves, we learned something called the cal participle, and we used typically ing English endings to translate those. What we didn't talk about at the time was the fact that these participles were active. Okay, so we're dealing with cal active participles. That means that whatever the participle describes is performing the verbal action. What was the vowel pattern for the cal active participle? What did root 1 get for the cal participle? Holum. Root 2? Sere. Good. So pokade. Remember pokade? And we translated that as appointing or visiting. And that was the masculine singular form. What was the feminine singular form? Pokade became pokedit. The masculine plural? Pokadim. Feminine plural? Polkadot. Polkadot. Remember 0, a, or t, im, and ot. Participles use all the endings that the nouns and adjectives use. So, appointing. Now, in this chapter, we're dealing with the cal passive participle, and then cal passive participle, and any passive participle for that matter. The person being described by the participle is not performing the action, rather, it has the action done to it, okay? Now, the formation of the cal passive participle is not pokade, but pakud. Pakud. Same three root letters as pokade, but with different vowels. Kametz, shurik, pakud. Which one of these is historically long? The shurik. So that shurik will never change, in that it will never reduce to vocal shava. Okay? I may add a kametz hey to this dalet to make it feminine singular, and when that dalet slides over and goes with the vowel and leaves this open and pretonic, I would normally reduce that to vocal shava with my verbs, but I can't reduce a historically long vowel to vocal shava, so that shurik will stay put. Okay? I could see the kametz reducing to vocal shava. Pakud, and then p with the vocal shava, kuda. Pukudim, pukudot. How am I going to translate this? I'm going to translate it as appointed. Okay? So the appointed king. That doesn't mean the king's appointing anyone, but rather someone appointed the king, right? The appointed king. The appointed feast. The appointed cat. The cat is now the king, right? So let's take a look at these items in our drill sheet, and let's just start working through them. So I give you the first one, pukude. Pukude, you can identify the first thing we need, which are the three root letters, right? Pakad. That's easy. Looking at the vowel pointing, we have pukud. Pukud. This vocal shava doesn't help us very much, but the shurik certainly does, doesn't it? If I see a shurik with root 2, there is only one thing that could be, and that's a cal passive participle. Okay? So I've got root letters and cal passive participle. Now, person, gender, number. Do participles have person? No, they are only marked for gender and number. Participles are not personal. Nothing personal here. It's business, not personal. So this is just going to have gender and number. Now I've got the Canadian ending on the back. So typically Canadian ending is going to tell me what? I see Canadian ending? That's masculine plural, right? And construct. So I've got the state as well, right? Masculine plural and construct. So that means that if I were to see this in real life, I would usually see immediately following pukude a noun, because this would be noun number 1 in the construct followed by noun number 2. Something like pukude ha, let's just say ha ear. Okay, what would that mean? The appointed ones of the city. The appointed ones, or the appointed men, because it's masculine plural, we could assume it's male, right? The appointed ones or the appointed men of the city. And so we don't have that of the city there, so, and since we don't know whether it's going to be definite or not, you could put the in parentheses here. The, meaning we don't know. It could be definite, it could be indefinite. The appointed ones of some place or people. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the second one. I have pokadim. Pokadim. Same 3 root letters. But now I've got a holum with root 1 here. What does that tell me? Is this a passive participle if it's got a holum with root 1? No, it's active. Now, I want you to notice that after I put Pekov Dalit and Cal, I've just put participle here. I didn't put active participle. And so what does this mean? When we're labeling the Cal participles, basically my default labeling of Cal participle means the active one, okay? If I see you parsing something as a Cal participle, I'm assuming that you think it's an active participle because that's the normal one and it's the most common participle in the Cal. And so only if it's a passive, passive participle, will I require you to put passive with your participle, okay? If you want to go ahead and put active here, you can, but you don't have to. I'm going to assume active if all I see is participle. Otherwise, put passive there, okay? The eam tells me it's masculine plural. Is it construct or not? No, because what does eam always become when it's in the construct state? It becomes Canadian, eh? So it's not construct. And here it means appointing. Or if it's being used substantively, I could say appointing ones or ones who appoint. Okay? So the idea though is that whoever the participle is modifying, that person is doing the appointing. Over here in pukude, whoever that participle is modifying is not appointing, but rather was appointed by someone else, the appointed ones. Okay, so with that in mind, in our 3 minutes that are left, let's look at these forms. Pukuda, pukuda. We see our 3 root letters here easily enough. And we have a comet say ending. So we can go ahead and fill in some part of this, can't we? Gender, number, is what? Feminine singular. Good. Is this a participle? Yes. How do I know? The shurik with root 2. That's it. Shurik with root 2. If I see shurik, it's the participle. Is it active or passive? Which one? It's passive. So I'm going to put pass participle. Okay? So it's Cal passive participle. That means that someone has done this action to a feminine singular entity. Is it in the construct state? What happens to comet say in the construct state? A becomes at. Torah, torat. Remember the rat ending? Okay? So it's not construct. So we'll leave that blank. And then now how would I translate this? Yeah, it would just be appointed. Okay? But whoever is appointed or whatever is appointed is a feminine singular thing.
Could you use that substantively to say like the appointed lady?
You could. Now this doesn't have the article on it, so it would really be something like an appointed lady. an appointed woman. An appointed one, where the one is female. Yes. Good. Now, over here we have pukudot. Pukudot. Now, does anything jump out at you to tell you whether this is active or passive participle? That's shurik. Okay, good. So we know that that's got to be a passive participle too. What gender and number is it when it's got ot? Feminine plural. Is it construct or not? Okay. Could it be absolute? So the answer is yes and no on this then, right? It could be or it could not be. Because remember, in the feminine plural, the ot ending is unchanged. It's only the masculine plural that changes. Im becomes a, and the feminine singular, a becomes at. Zero ending for masculine singular. There's no ending to change in the construct. Ot stays ot. So it could be either one. Now, if it's absolute, how are we going to translate this? Yeah, well, it could be appointed if it's being used as a pure adjective, or if it's functioning as a noun. Again, appointed ones, appointed women, because it's feminine plural. Now, let me just real quickly ask you to look at ga'ul. Ga'ul. What are my root letters for ga'ul? Gimel, Aleph, Lamed. All right, good. And I have the long A under root 1, short with root 2. That is clearly a cal what? Passive participle. The shurik tells me it's passive participle. Is there an ending on ga'ul after root 3? No, the ending 0. So what gender and number is that? Masculine singular. Is it absolute or construct? I can't tell by the ending because there's no ending, right? If it were in the construct state, what would happen to this long A? It would reduce to a vocal shava in the construct. Because it would be ga'ul followed by a noun, where the noun takes the stress, the construct noun loses its stress, and this would be open and propertonic and would have to reduce to vocal shava. Okay, but it didn't. So this is not in the construct state, is it? So the answer is no. How would I translate this? What does ga'al mean? Okay, so ga'al, the cal verb means to redeem, but if I'm going to make it passive, I have to give it a passive translation. Redeem, redeemed, right? The redeemed man, the redeemed cat, the redeemed slave, okay? In all these situations, those entities are not redeeming, but rather they have been redeemed. And that's what a passive participle does. Okay? So we got you started on this. We want to work on that as well as the Ross chapter homework and bring that with you on Wednesday. Let's start for the homework on lesson 1 with the drill sheet, shall we? So the other day we worked on a couple of these together. Are there any other ones that you want to look at here? Okay, third from the last. Let's see. This is sholachim. Everybody say that. Sholachim. Okay. So doing this one here. Do you see 3 identifiable root letters for the verb? Yeah? What are they? That's it. Shin, Lamed, Chet. Okay, so those are the 3 root letters. Now, here's what I want to do. When I'm trying to decide on whether a verb is a participle that's active, passive, perfect, imperfect, I need to look and see, are there any prefixes here? If there aren't, then I know this is not an imperfect, and I know it's not a jussive or a cohortative. It's not a vayiktol. It's not a WCI. So without any prefixing, it could be the perfect. It could be the imperative. It could be the participles, okay? And the next thing I have to look at then is the vowel pointing. If I look at root 1, what vowel pointing does the root 1 sheen have? That's a holum. And that holum tells me that this is what form? It's the participle. And it's the active participle and not the passive one. Which means I'm going to be looking to translate this with the ing form of the verb, ing. So I need to write my 3 root letters, shalach here. Cal, participle, active participle. And then there's the eem ending on the back side. So what gender number is this? It's masculine plural. Remember, the participle does not have person, so you do not have to put a 1, 2, or 3 before that. Only gender and number, no person. Participles are impersonal. Now, the question here in this column is this in the construct state, I think? And the answer is, what? No, what happens to eem when it becomes construct? What nationality does it become? It becomes Canadian. A? So it's not Canadian, so this is the absolute. So I think I'm going to have to put no here, right? It's not in the construct state. It's in the absolute state. All right, now what does shalach mean? This is one of our new vocab words. To send. So, how am I going to translate this? Sending, exactly. Sending. We use the ing form. So whatever this is describing, that thing or person is doing the sending. And that's the way active participles work. If the participle is active, whatever it describes does the participle action. If the participle is passive, then whatever it describes is not doing the participle. Rather, the participle action is being done to it or him. Okay? Let's just remind ourselves of this reality. If I had something like the man sending chocolates, okay, who is being described by the participle sending? Yeah, the man is being modified or described by the sending, by the participle. And is the man actually doing the sending? The man sending chocolates? Yes. Okay. But on the other hand, if I had something like this, the man sent from God. Here, this is another participle. Sending is active and sent is passive. They're both describing or modifying man here. But is the man sending anyone? No. Rather, the idea of sending is something that was done to the man. You see? So the man sent, or the sent man, is not a man who's doing the sending, but who has been sent. On the other hand, the man sending, or the sending man, is a man who actually engages in the action. That's the difference between active participles and passive participles, okay? Now, for this third from the last, is that clear as far as how we work through the parsing? All right, let's just look at the one right before to draw that distinction that we're just looking at in English. I have next, fourth from the last, the word not sholachim, but shaluchim. Shaluchim. Same 3 root letters as before, shalach. But now my vowel points are slightly different. And the most important thing is this shurik right here after root 2. When I see a shurik after root 2, what have I got to be thinking this is? That's right. This is the cal passive participle. And am I going to use the ing form of the verb here when I have a cal passive participle? Nay. Nay, Lord. We're not going to do that. Rather, what are we going to do here? We're going to use the forms that end with ed, d, or t. Those are typically our endings. So how would I translate shiluchim if the meaning of the verb is to send, but we're dealing with the passive participle? Not sending, but what? That's right, sent. Okay, sent. Now, back to the end of it. I have shiluchim. I would normally have shaluch, but I've got a vocal shavah here when I add the im. Why did that happen? Yeah, it's a matter of reduction, right? I'm adding a syllable at the end, which becomes tonic. So lu becomes pretonic and sha becomes propertonic, and it's open, and it has to reduce to a vocal shavah. All right? So that's our oops ras vocal shavah rule. It's going to happen over and over and over in Hebrew. Shiluchim. Now, so that means it's masculine plural. Is it construct? No, it's not. No, it's not. So this is describing masculine plural entities, men, who are sent men. Okay, the men, the sent men. Okay. Everybody good? That's not a theological question, by the way. We all know the answer to that. That's a psychological question. Yes?
I just had a question about the active participle.
Mm-hmm.
And the feminine singular and the masculine singular. What would the construct version of it look like? Or do they have a construct version? So like for bouquet and bouqueted, the 6th and 7th one down.
Oh, right. Yes. No, you usually won't see a difference. Sometimes the sere could become a sigil. Like if you had a makaf separating them. Okay. But for the most part, you won't expect to see a difference in form. And of course, since the masculine singular has no ending, there isn't there's no change of ending to differentiate the two. Did you say feminine singular? Mm-hmm. Right, and with poketet, there won't be a distinction there. Mm-hmm. Right. And the holum of po is a historically long holum vav that's written defectively. So that never reduces. Now, on the passive cal passive verbs, you can see reduction there. So with ga'ul, that long A is not historically long. It's the shurik here that's historically long, right? So if I had a masculine singular construct form of this, then it would be ga'ul with a vocal shavah here. Ga'ul. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? If you don't, what I want to do is ask you to let me drill you on a couple of things, okay? Can we do that? Just looking at what I'm highlighting here, based on this, can you tell me if this is an active or a passive participle? Look at pekudim. Yeah, that's passive. Because there's no holum with root 1. That's the cal active participle. So po, what is that? Active or passive? Active. Pokedet? Active. Pukudat? Passive. Ga'ul? It's passive because the active's always O. So, ga'ul. Gu'ula? That's passive. Go-el? Go-el it on a mountain, y'all. Shluchim, it's passive. Because if it were active, it would be sholachim, right? Okay, and then sholachim? Active, that's right. I have a holum with root 1. It's an active participle. What about lo chedet? Yeah, it's active. I have a holum. Lo chedet. Lechuda? That's passive. All right, good. You see how easy it is to tell the difference between active and passive? I'll let you say that. I just got to remember the active participle in the cal is holum with root 1. Po-cade, po-kedet, po-kadim, po-kadot, po. Okay? Passive, it's going to be pa-kud, or vocal shava, pa-kud. But it'll always have the u. Always have the u. Okay? All right, now, let's drill a couple of more things, okay? So let me go back up here, and we're not going to look at these answers over here. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell me what the gender, number, and state is. Is it masculine singular construct, masculine plural construct, feminine singular absolute, whatever. So we're not focusing on whether it's active or passive. We're just focusing on gender, number, and state, okay? So this first one right here. Yeah, not just plural, but masculine plural and construct, because it's Canadian, eh? Right. Okay. Im, masculine plural, absolute, not construct. A, feminine singular, absolute. Oath, feminine plural, and it could be either absolute or construct. There's no difference between these two. Im, masculine plural, absolute. Pocade, masculine singular, okay? And absolute would be our assumption here. Could be either. Pokedet, that's feminine singular, and absolute could be construct as well. Pukudat, at, feminine singular, construct. Pukuda would be feminine singular, absolute. Pukudat, feminine singular, construct. Okay. Gaul, what's that? Masculine singular, absolute. Absolutely so. If it were a vocal shava, gu'ul, it would be masculine singular, construct. Gu'ula, feminine singular. Are you sure it's absolute? Yes. What would it have to do if it became construct, feminine singular? Yeah, a becomes at. A becomes at in the construct. Go'el, masculine singular and absolute. Shluchim, masculine plural, absolute. Sholachim, masculine plural, absolute. Lokedet, feminine singular, and presumably absolute. Lukuda, feminine singular, absolute. Okay, so now what I'm going to focus on is the meaning of the participle with these root letters, okay, and whether it's active or passive. So, taking a look at pukude, was that active or passive? Pukude. How are we going to translate that? Okay, appointed ones of, because it's construct. I'm going to add of. Appointed ones of. Pokadim. So this is active, so I don't want to say appointed, but appointing. Appointing. And if it's being used as a noun, it would be appointing ones. But if it's just a plain old adjectival use, it would just be appointing. All right? Pukuda. How do I translate that? Depends on whether it's active or passive. What is it?
Passive.
It's passive, so it's appointed. Good. Pukudot.
Passive.
It's passive, so it's appointed. Pukudim. What is it? Translate it.
Appointed.
Appointed, because it's passive. It's got the shurik, right? Look at pokad. How do I want to translate that? Appointing, because it's active. I've got the holem with root one. Appointing. Pokedit?
Appointed.
Appointing. Pukudat? Is it active or passive? Passive. Got the shurik, so it's appointed, but it's in the construct. So, yeah, appointed of, or maybe the appointed woman of the city. Ga'ul. What does Ga'al mean? To do what? To redeem. And so Ga'ul is redeemed. Excellent. Redeemed. Ge'ulah. What's the feminine version of redeemed? Redeemed. It's the same in English. There's no difference in translation value. So Ga'ul and Ge'ulah mean redeemed, but this one describes a masculine singular and this one describes a feminine singular entity. Go'el. It's redeeming. Why? Because it's got a holem here. It's active. Shaluchim. What does shalach mean? Shalach. To send. To send or stretch out. So let's use send here. So is this active or passive? Shaluchim. Passive. So translate that. Shaluchim is sent. Sent. And it's referring to a group of people who are sent, male. Sholachim. Active or passive? Active. So, translate. Shalach is to send. Send. No, it's not passive. Sholachim. What do I add to participles to make them active? ING. So sending. Okay, so shaluchim is sent, passive, but if it's active, it's sending. Sending. Sholachim. Lokedet. What's lachad mean? To capture. Is this active or passive? Active. So I'm going to translate this as capturing. Capturing. And then lukuda is active or passive? Passive. So it's captured. Captured with respect to a woman. Lokedet, capturing with respect to a woman. So the woman is capturing in this one, and the woman is captured in this last one. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at your translation exercises now. All right. So then are there any questions on section A, 1 through 6? Yes, in the back.
This is a more general question relating to translation homework. But are you required to use the specifically from English to Hebrew? Because most of the time when I do translations, I forget to mark with the direct objects marker. Is that required to use, or?
If the direct object is definite, you should use it, just as a matter of course. It is possible to find in the Hebrew Bible a direct object that's definite without the direct object marker marking it, and you still would understand the object as a direct object. It's just that sometimes it is omitted. Most of the time it's not. Yes? Number one. So we have the broken laws here. First thing we want to do is think about what order the words are going to go in. So I have the laws, and the word broken is telling me what kind of laws, right? So what use of the verbal adjective known as a participle is this? Is this attributive, predicate, or substantival use?
Attributive.
It's attributive because it's telling me what kind of laws. They're broken laws. And that means that I have to follow the attributive word order, which is to put what goes first and what goes second in attributive position. So the noun goes first, the attributive adjective, and in this case, the attributive participle goes second. How do they have to agree with each other? How do nouns and attributive adjectives agree with each other? Gender, number, and definiteness. Exactly. So if it's attributive, the attributive adjective or participle follows the noun and agrees in gender, number, and definiteness. Okay? So that's what we have to do here. We have to make sure that the laws is first and the broken is second. Okay? So what are the laws in Hebrew? Ha-torot. So Torah is one law, Torot is multiple, right? So ha-torot, and then the broken, I have to have another ha because they have to agree in definiteness. What's the word for break? First of all, shavar. So we're going to use a form of shavar, and we have to have the right vowel pointing. So what's the vowel pointing for the cow passive participle, which is what broken is going to be? It's going to be sha. Vur is the basic masculine singular form, right? Shavur. Shavur. Ka, pakud, shavur. Long A under root 1. Shurk with root 2. I need to make sure that it matches torot, though. So what gender and number does shavur have to become? Feminine plural, which means here I'm going to add what to the end? Oat, exactly. And I need my ha with the dagesh forte in it. Now, one last thing. It would have been ha shavurot. My accent is way over here. And so this kametz is in an open and propertonic syllable now. Shavurot. Tone, pretone, propertonic, right? What's going to have to happen to that changeable vowel right here, this long A? It will reduce to what? A vocal shava. So it's going to be ha shavurot. So ha-torot, ha-shavurot. Literally the laws, the broken, which is the broken laws. Okay?
So when a form of a verb is being used as an adjective, it follows the vowel reduction rules for adjectives? I didn't think verbs did that.
Yeah, what verbs do is whenever their syllables become open and pretonic, they would reduce. And with nouns, when their syllables become open and pretonic, they have to be long, right? So here, this is open and pretonic, and it should reduce the vocal shava, but it can't because shurik is historically long. So what Hebrew will do is it'll go to the next syllable and ask, okay, are you changeable? And if so, can I reduce you to vocal shava? Okay, the open propertonic syllable rule, that is something that is characteristic of verbs and nouns and adjectives. Okay, yes?
So under normal circumstances, would the long A have reduced to a short A, or would it always just go straight to the
If it's open, it'll go all the way down to vocal shava when it's open and propertonic. If it were in a closed syllable here, this is what I was looking at here. If it were in a closed syllable and it was long and became unstressed, then it would go to a short A.
Okay, right.
Yep. Okay, good. All right, other questions here about this homework exercise? In section A?
Could you do number 6?
Yeah, let's look at number 6. So we have they are burning. Now look at the ing form on burning. Is this an active or a passive participle? It's active. Ing forms are for active participles. So I want to use the participle with what vowel with root 1? If it's a calactive participle, holum, right? Po, 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 pocade, pocedit, pocadine, pocadot. So I need to remember how to say burn. What is that? Saraf. Saraf is my basic 3 root letters. Okay? So, they is the pronoun. I need the pronoun of they, third masculine plural, and it's hame or hema. We'll just make it a short hame, which is they. And then I don't use the copula, do I? Is and are understood in Hebrew. So I'm going to go straight to the participle of saraf. It's active. So what do we say our vowel point needs to be? Holum. So I've got a dot on the left side that could be the seen dot, and I can also use it for my holum, can't I? So I'm going to just put that dot once. And then normally it's a sere with root 2, so Rafe. But notice this is masculine plural, they. So what do I have to add to so Rafe to make it masculine plural to match the subject noun pronoun? Got to add eem. So that means I have a final pay here that is no longer going to be final. So I'm going to have to write this as a non-final pay. So Rafim, going to add that. Now, here's our rule about verbs. When the eem becomes the final syllable, it's going to pull the stress. Pay, curriculum mem is theme. This is now open and pretonic, and what will verbs do with that situation? Those will reduce the vocal shiva. So haim, so rafim. They are burning. Haim, so rafim. They are burning. The city. There's my direct object. Is it definite? Then I'm going to want to put what in front of it? Yeah, at or 8. So we'll do 8. And then I need to put the city, which is what? Ear. Why do I have a kametz here in front of ear? Yep, that's right. Ayin's a guttural, rejects the dagesh, and so the pathak has compensatorily lengthened to make up for the rejection of the dagesh. Et ha'ir. So they are burning the city with fire. What's the word for fire? It's aish. So I could just say they are burning et ha'ir aish. They are burning the city fire. That is possible. And that would mean with fire. But I could also use a preposition to say with fire. And what would I use for that? The preposition bet can be used to mean with when it means the means for doing something. By means of fire. By means of something. He killed him by means of the sword or with the sword. Okay? So that's how I would do it. Now notice that I did not have the article pointing here. I've left the bet with a vocal shiva because I don't need an article. It's just with fire. You see? So it's just ba'esh. Okay. It is possible when you have a preposition bet, kaf or lamed, followed by a word where the stress is immediately following it, that vocal shiva could become a long A. So that's a possibility too.
So since this is with like means, we couldn't use M or F.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So we have the word was written. And this is in parentheses or brackets to indicate that in Hebrew it's not going to be expressed. Okay? Now what does that mean? That means I'm going to have a subject noun, the word, and I'm going to have a participle that is on the other side of the copula to be in the past tense. So this participle is what? An attributive, a predicate, or a substantival use? By the way, it is passive, written, right? So which one is it? It's predicate. Attributive use would be what? How would I say this if written were an attributive participle? The written word. And it would tell you what kind of word, the written word, as opposed to the spoken word. Okay? Here, written is not telling you what kind of word, but rather it's what the word is or was, what you're asserting about the word. Okay? Now, in these situations, does the predicate participle have to go after the noun, the subject noun? No. Predicate participles and adjectives could go first or they could go second. It doesn't matter. They can go in any order. Okay, so we could write this a couple of ways. Let's assume, let's write it after the noun. So I have the word, which is what in Hebrew? Hadavar. And if you don't remember your vowel pointing here, this is just because you've forgotten it. You've forgotten your vocab word. Okay, davar has two long A's there. Ha in front with a dagesh forte now. Ha davar, the word. No form of to be. Then I have to write the word written, which is a passive form. So what are the root letters? What Hebrew verbs root letters are used for writing? Kaf, tav, beth, right? Kathab. It's got to be the cow passive participle if it's written. It'd be active if it were writing. Okay, but this is written. So what do I use? I use what under the kaf normally? Kametz. And the root 2 gets shurik. Okay, so that's the masculine singular form. Now here's the question. Do I need a different form than the masculine singular form given the fact that hadavar is my subject? No. Hadavar is masculine singular as well. So I've got the right form by using the basic form. If it's a predicate participle, do I need to put the ha on the participle? No, because participles and adjectives that are in predicate position do not take the article. They are always anarthrous. If the subject noun is articular, then there's going to be a lack of matching on that score. Gender and number has to be the same. So I'm done. The word, hadavar, was, unstated, copula, kathuv, written, kathuv. Okay, and that means that someone else wrote it. You see, whatever passive participles are describing, those things are not doing the action, but rather the action has been done to whatever it describes. So if you look at the broken vessel, is that a passive participle? Is the vessel breaking anything? No. Rather, someone has broken the vessel. Okay? Let's look at number 2 here. We have the burned houses. The burned houses. First question that I want to ask you here is this. The word burned, is that a participle? Yes. So it's a participle. Is it active or passive? Are the houses burning anything, or are the houses being burned, or have they been burned? They've been burned. So this is clearly passive. Last question. As a participle, is this attributive, predicative, or substantival in its function? It is attributive because it's telling me what kind of houses we're talking about. The burned houses, the burned kind. All right. That means that I have to follow the standard word order for attributive adjectives, which is noun first, adjective second, attributive adjective second. It also has to agree in what ways? Gender, number, and definiteness. That's right. So, How do I write the houses? The word for house is habayit. Habayit. I'm going to write that down here a little bit lower, okay? But it's not one house, it's houses. So how do we make habayit plural? Yeah, it's actually going to be habatim, habatim, and I'm going to lose the yod here. It's been quite a while since we've actually done this one, but it's going to be habatim. It looks like that. And I'm going to have a dagesh forte. What's that?
What's the rule for making the yod disappear?
Yeah, good question. This is, and in the vocabulary list, when he gave you the word bayit and the plural, he told you this one's an irregular plural, okay? So there's really not a rule where you see this happening to other nouns. It's just this noun is peculiar this way. So habayit becomes habatim when it's made plural, with a dagesh forte in that tav, habatim. And then we need to say burned. The houses the burned. So what do? I have to take the verb saraf, which means burn, and I need to use the cow passive participle form of it, and that is going to be normally saruf. But what kind of ending needs to go on saruf? Yeah, I have batim. I'm expecting sarufim. Accent's going to be way over here on the end, so what's going to happen to sa? It'll reduce to vocal shava, that's right. So I get sarufim. And then there's one last operation that needs to happen. If it's attributive, we have to follow the ha-ha rule, right? Ha-batim, ha-sarufim. So we got to add the article. So ha-batim, ha-sarufim. The houses, the burned, or the burned houses. Okay? So let's go to the translation homework here. Any numbers you want to look at on these? Okay. So we have va-yif-kadu. Do you see this vowel pointing of the vav? What does that tell you about that form?
WCI?
It's a WCI, which is what time frame? It's past. So how would we translate va-yif-kadu? All by itself. They appointed. They appointed, or they visited. Okay, either of those are okay right now. Now, is this singular or plural verb? If we're saying they, it's plural, right? So what we might want to ask, is there a plural subject that's explicit here? What is Malachi Elohim? Messengers of God. Do you see the Canadian ending? So this would be the messengers of God appointed. Otho? Him. This is direct object marker with 3ms pronoun. So the messengers of God appointed him. Vahu, and he, shochein. So what vowel is with root 1 here on this verb? Holem. So is this active or passive? It's active. So and he, since this is past time, I'm going to translate this as past as well. And he was what? Dwelling. And he was dwelling al safat hanahar. Hanahar, not na'ar. On the lip of the young boy would not be where you'd want him to be dwelling. on the lip or edge of the river. Okay, so all is on. So he was dwelling on the edge of the river. Now, this is a vav attached to a non-verb. So what does Ross call this kind of a vav? It's disjunctive, and it's signaling a break in the narrative. This was the last event that happened in the narrative, and this is giving me some kind of circumstantial or parenthetical information. So let's go back and think through what the relationship of this sentence is to the main narrative sentence. The messengers of God appointed him, and he was dwelling somewhere. What's that relationship? What kind of circumstantial information is this giving? Probably temporal. And so you could translate this as when or while he was dwelling on the edge of the river. Okay? This is the circumstance in which they appointed him. Does that make sense? Okay? All right. What else? Yeah, let's look at number 6. Number 6 has an interrogative word that we learned in just a prior chapter. What's lama mean? Why? Wherefore? What for? Why? Lakachta. There's my 3 root letters, lakach plus ta at the end. So why did you, lakach, take? Why did you take? Lakach is to take. This is the Cal Perfect to MS. Why did you take? Memenu. What is the preposition here? This is men. And at the last part of our Ross chapter, we learned that when you add pronominal suffixes to men, we get some funny forms of men. So this is memain. Men becomes memain. And then I have new. So there's 2 possibilities here. If you look at page 159, where do you see memenu? It could be men plus the 3ms pronoun, from him, or men plus the 1CP pronoun, from us. Now, from him or from us. We don't know, given the context yet, which of those is better, do we? We really don't learn until we get to the second half of the sentence. So let's keep them both in mind. So why did you take from him or us et birkataha? This take is a verb that takes a direct object, so I'm going to assume that this is marking my direct object. That means that noun must be definite. Is there anything definite about birkataha? Yes, the pronominal suffix. What person, gender, number is that? It's 2ms. It's your something, which is definite. What is this? Your blessing. Is it one or many blessings? Just one. If there were 2 or more, I'd have a yod before the pronoun, wouldn't I? Okay, so this is one blessing. So why did you take from him or us your blessing? And then I have my new sentence begins with a vav and a non-verb. That's called a disjunctive vav. And anachnu is we, shomerim, there's your Cal active participle, and we, what's shamar? That's amar, is said. Shomerim, from shamar is to keep or guard. And we, keeping, meaning we were keeping, because this is past with the perfect over here, and we were keeping et toroteha. Your, there's the same pronominal suffix. Now look, there's a yod before it. This isn't one law, but many laws. So we were keeping your laws. Okay, so think about that for a minute. This is, again, circumstantial disjunctive clause. This is what happened, and this is the context within which it happened. And what is the semantics of taking away a blessing and we were keeping your laws. Do you expect those to go together? Someone keeping laws and someone removing a blessing from somebody keeping laws? No. Those are opposites, aren't they? And that's where it makes sense to think of this as more of a concessive idea, where we will translate that as although or even though. Okay? So why did you take away your blessing from, now what am I going to choose, him or us here? Us, because I have a we with a nachnu. So we'll go with us. So why did you take your blessing from us, even though we were keeping your laws? Okay? All right. We have time for one final one. Anybody else have one they want to look at real quickly? All right. Did you have one? Okay. Let's do number 3. All right. Elohim Molech. That means God is Molech. Oh, I'm sorry. That is not what number 2 is, by the way. It means God reigns, or God is reigning. Number 3, Amar Hanavi. Translate that. The prophet said, and presumably this is where the quotation opens, He'arim surufot esh. What's He'arim? The cities. Is it articular or not? Yes. There's the article here. Okay. And then I have surufot. By the way, what gender and number is arim? It looks masculine plural, but ear is feminine plural. It's one of those wacky ones. Surufot is feminine plural. These match gender. They do not match definiteness. No ha-ha. So which use of the participle might this be? It's a predicate use. So we might say the cities are or were surufot. Yeah, or just burned. Okay? We don't have to translate the participle as being burned. Just burned is perfectly fine as well. So the cities were burned or are burned. Aish. Yeah, the bare noun can be used in an adverbial way, and we'd have to use a preposition with it in English, with fire. V'yoshevei Yerushalayim lukudim. Look at Yoshevei. You see the Canadian ending here. So this is a construct chain, isn't it? It's the plural things of Yerushalayim. What is Yoshevim or Yoshevei? Yeah, this is the verb yashav with a kal active participle. Yoshev in the singular, Yoshevim in the plural for masculine, and Yoshevim becomes Yoshevei in the masculine plural construct. So the inhabitants or the dwelling ones of Jerusalem, which are the inhabitants of Jerusalem, lukudim. Is that active or passive? See the shurik here? It's passive. So it's a participle, and is it attributive or predicate use? It's a predicate use. This is masculine plural. Yoshevei is masculine plural, but is Yoshevei definite? How do I know it's definite? It's in construct with a definite noun. So it's the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Predicate use. Are or were lukudim. Were captured. Okay? Since it's Amar Hanavi, I'm going to take everything as past. So the prophet said, quote, the cities were burned with fire, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem were lukudim, captured, passive participle.
So you know that's all in one quote because there's no disjunctive accent. Is that how you would know that the second part isn't like?
That's not necessarily why I know that. It's just the fact that he seems to be giving a report of the battle, and both of these are things that you could imagine being reported by someone. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at number 2 here. We have Elohim Molech. Elohim Molech. This means Elohim is Molech. Is that right? No, that is not what it means. You remember Molech is one of the Canaanite gods. This is a participle. So Elohim Molech, this is a participle. Is it active or passive? It's active. So I'm going to translate this as God is reigning, or it could be a habitual situation, God reigns. But let's say God is reigning. The is the copula that's unstated in Hebrew. So God is reigning. All hagoyim. What does that mean? All over hagoyim, the Gentiles or the nations. And then I have ein kamohu. Ein kamohu. Now, what does ein mean? Yes, there is not. There is not. And then kamohu is our form of the preposition kaf when we're adding some pronominal suffixes to it. So what does kamohu mean? Yeah, like him. So if you just left it as, the translation glosses that you have for these, you would say something like, there is not like him. Now, in the grammar here, what we're missing is some sort of a noun that this prepositional phrase is modifying. There is no God like him. There is no one like him, or some such thing. And so I would go ahead and add the word one here. That would be the best way in English to get this idea across. There isn't like him. There isn't a like him one, or there is no one like him. All right? Is that clear? All right, good. What other numbers do you want to go through? All right, there's a request for 8. Let's look at 8 real quickly here. We have Yigal Adonai. Yigal Adonai. I'm sorry, 8 is Vayigal Adonai. So I have a Vav Pathak and a doubling dot and a nutty prefix. This is what verb form? Yep, it's a past form, a Vayiktol or a WCI. What does Ga'al mean? To redeem. I have a yod in the front of the gimel and no ending, so this is a WCI 3MS. So who redeemed? If it's 3MS, it's either he or it's an explicit singular noun. Do I have a singular noun that could be the subject of this verb? Yeah, Yahweh is right here after the verb. So Yahweh redeemed. Et amo. He redeemed who or what? His people. This et is marking the direct object if the direct object is definite. Is this direct object definite? What makes it definite? There's no article on it. That's right, the pronominal suffix. When I specify whose people, then I'm making it a specific people. So Yahweh redeemed his people. Mitzaratham. What's the prefix here? What word is this? So this is the preposition min, where the noon has assimilated. What is the at the end here? This is a pronoun suffix. Which person, gender, number is it? Yeah, third masculine plural. So it's from their tsarat. Now, tsarat is not the lexical form. It's really what? Sarah. But why is this tav hanging out here at the end of Sarah? Well, in order to add a pronominal suffix to it, I had to switch the comets hey to a form ending with a tav. Sarah becomes sarat so that I can add a pronominal suffix to it. Now, so how am I going to translate this? Sarah is one of your new words. From their distress. Okay? So back to the beginning. Adonai redeemed his people, mitzaratam, literally from the distress of them, from their distress. And then I have a key clause. What's one of the ways to translate the key here? Because. I could also translate it as that if it's one of those verbs that can take an object that starts with that. I know that. I believe that. I heard that. But here, this key clause is not the direct object of the verb because amo is the direct object of the verb. And this isn't a verb of speaking or saying or believing. Okay, so I'm going to translate the key as causal here, because. So Yahweh redeemed them because batechu. Because what? What's batechu? Batach means to trust. And look, I have a long A under root 1. That is characteristic of what conjugation pattern? That's right. This is the cal perfect. When I have a shurik at the end of a cal perfect, it's 3 CP. Because they trusted. They trusted in what? B'chasdo. Yep, there's the preposition bet, in, and there's the 3ms pronoun, his, chesed. So chesed has changed to chasd when I add the pronominal suffix. You remember, hesed is a segulate noun, and segulate nouns that have that double segul pattern, they often obscure what the true vowel was. And it's only when we add pronominal suffixes that we get the real original vowel that was there. So remember Melech? Melech has a double segul, but when I add the pronominal suffix, it becomes something like Malko, his king. And that original A vowel returns. Chesed, same thing. The segul obscures the original vowel, but when I add the pronoun chasdo, I do get my original vowel under root 1. So in his loving kindness. So why did he redeem them? Because they trusted in his loving kindness.
Do you mind doing number 9?
No, I don't mind. Let's look at number 9 here. Okay, so number 9, I have all timkor. All timkor. I see all, and I must be thinking that I'm going to have immediately following this not what kind of a form? A volitional form or a non-volitional form? It's got to be volitional. Okay, so I'm expressing will as the speaker that something not happen. Now look at timkor. What are my 3 verbal root letters? Is it tav mem kaf or mem kaf resh? That's right. I have a verb makar. What does it mean? To sell. That's right. You want to sell makar, don't you? Well, I'm going to tell you not to do it. All timkor. I like makar. All timkor. Is this possibly a second person with all in front of it as a way of prohibiting something? Yes. And is this the imperfect or the jussive with that prefix tav? It's got to be jussive because all always negates jussives if the form could have been the imperfect as well, right? And timkor could be imperfect or jussive, but with all, it's got to be jussive. And with just the tav, It could be 2MS. What else could it be? It could be 3FS as well, couldn't it? But for starters, let's go with the 2MS because we think we might be prohibiting a U from doing something. So if it's jussive and negated in the second person, how do I want to translate that? Thou shalt not or don't? What's that? Yeah, do not or don't. Do not or don't makar. Don't sell. And then I have et hakeli. What's that? Yeah, do not sell the vessel. Do not sell the vessel. And then I have ha-shavur. Ha-shavur. That's interesting. I have ha-kali, ha-shavur, ha-hu, ha-ha-ha. This is a noun. It's looking like I've got attributive things following, doesn't it? Now, shavur, is that an adjective or is that a participle? It's a participle, which participles are verbal adjectives, aren't they? But it's not merely an adjective. It's a verbal adjective. So this is a participle. Is it active or passive? Passive. I've got the shurik here with root 2. So what does shavar mean in the normal cal? To what? To break. But I have to use the passive participle translation. What's the passive participle translation for break? Broken. Broken. So what kind of vessel is this if this is an attributive participle? The broken vessel. But I've got another ha with who? Ha-hu. That is a demonstrative, isn't it? Is it the near, this, or the far, that demonstrative? Yeah, this is the far demonstrative, that. So how am I going to translate ha-kali, ha-shavur, ha-hu? That's right, that broken vessel. Do not sell the vessel that broken the that. Is do not sell that broken vessel. All right? Is that clear? Don't do it. All right. Very good. You're welcome. Let's stop there.